Welcome back. We're here to cover the new moon in Aries and give you some context about what is going on up in the stars in our own personal lives and how we directly can use this energy and be well and truly prepared. Now, we are going to wait for a few people to enter. Some of you around the world may be asleep. We'll give it 5, grab a drink, and we're going to get tucked straight into the energy. Okay, we are going to get straight into it. I will throw me up on the screen. I am by no means flash, but I am here, and we are going to take a look at this transit. Now, what we do have is the necessity to have some context about what is going to be happening during this time, starting from now. So many times when we do have transits, what we do tend to have is things actually directly playing out well and truly ahead of time. If you have not been sleeping, I would gospelly not be surprised. It is very hard to sleep in these transits. Regardless of the fact that I do have a foot injury and some of that could have been directly impacting it, again, I will still state I would be gospelly surprised if you guys have had an ability to sleep. How many of you have had issues with your sleep? Your anxiety levels can be peaking. You may feel as though, penny little, the sky is falling down and you need to make a decision. You may not even know what that bloody decision is about, but we're going to get into the reasons why some of that is playing out and why that is so. Now, I have done a blog post. It's going to be open directly after this. I'll open it up to the public. The members have theirs, and I will be chiming into the membership. And actually, at some point, we are going to look at our charts and those signature points of where those things are. Now, collectively, that Aries energy is the place of self. We will say that. It's also the frequency of Mars, which is, again, we need to look at the degree point too. Mars, it can be two things. Now, there's never any set context as to what something is. Directly speaking, at times you can find it can be both the hero and the perpetrator. It can be a vibration that we're going to exhibit. We can feel almost rushed and in a hurry to actually get things done. It might feel as though we need to do something. It's like, what can we do? We can feel anger. We can feel frustration. We can feel passionate. We can get cross at people around us. All of those things. The interesting thing is when you look at a lunation, it is emotion. Moon is home. It's women. It's the deeper emotion that is festering beyond the surface. It can be your physical home environment, your land, and your bold opinions of it, as well as the safety and the independence that you would desire to feel. So, again, human beings all collectively going to be going through this. And I always call it the goldfish bowl effect. You have the global astrology, that of what is happening in the collective, and you look to what is happening, and Mars directly is the planet of war. But it's not just that. So we're looking to particular global events, and we're wondering how those things are going to go, and then how it directly, Aries, self affects thyself. This will depend on your zodiac sign. It could be and we will go into those things, okay? But we need to get some context before we dive straight in. Now, I'm not looking at just doing the research, writing the blog posts, sharing it to the members, sharing it to the website. It was an interesting process to actually move through it. And I can say, especially with a lot of the propaganda that actually is out there, and by no means am I saying nothing significant can happen. I do think there is definitely a possibility. But on a separate level, what we do find is it's probably going to make more sense the more we go down the rabbit hole with the context of it. I'm going to read a little bit of what I wrote to give you some context. Where is the post? Okay, so the new moon in Aries at 27 degrees on the 17th of April 2026. It's an opportunity, but will you take it? Now, one of the songs that came up for me from a psychic point of view, which was really cropping up since 2017, was Billy Joel, We Didn't Start the Fire. And ironically enough, it actually was released in, let's get the date. We will get the date for you. I was looking at it going, where were the nodes? 1989. So the nodes were shifting from Pisces, where we currently are right now, into Aquarius and Leo. And so what significant energies did we have around those times? We'll go and listen to the song, where it takes you really down memory lane of where society was. Disputes, belief systems, ecosystems, politics, who did this, who did that. It's almost like it gives you this context of feeling like semi-accountable, but simultaneously disempowered because you didn't start the fire. But did we? But did we not? Both sides. Aries is the place of south where we do have, again, Saturn, a sense of responsibility. And I'm going to come back to this. This is just an interesting point. It was a crossing over of the 12th house Pisces into the first house Aries. So we very much since the beginning of the year have been pondering, experiencing, and mourning that cycle. And why is the energy of Pisces over to Aries? And we're grappling and dealing with those energies right now. So on one way, we're like, heck, we just want to get out of that Pisces energy. On the other side, we have this nostalgia of the old world and how things used to be, and that we really want those things to go back to the way they were before. In other ways, we see, like the Fool card in Tarot, the direct possibility, the infinite potentials. That's very much the 0 degree point. And so we're grappling with those situations right now. Now, I have actually referenced in this article how a lot of our previous transits from 2020 to this point are very much coming up at this point in time. Based on where the nodes were when they were in Libra and Aries. The North Node was in Aries. The South Node was in Libra. The other was Gemini and Sagittarius axis, and 2020 as well, to do with the conjunction. So a lot of these portals, these points, we have actually already done some work over. We also have done work within the element of Aries in Chiron. So what does that mean? When we look at the degree points of these positions right now, moving over the next few days with the conjunction points. So if you have actually looked at any context of astrology, there's hundreds of individuals on YouTube that are going to give you that context, and I try to give you a little bit of a different spin on it to give you a broad range view. Now, okay, the change by example. I'll give you an example of how we've changed so far. If you look back to 2020, many people went from, working directly in an office to then having to work home. And some of us can have that fear. We can be seeing some of those subject matters playing out in the collective, how this is going to directly impact us, how the changes are directly impacting different countries, trades, alliances, etc. Health-related subjects, how we're caring for ourselves. Aries is going to motivate you to want to care for yourself more. It's going to motivate you to start asking yourself what is important to you. And I think there has been a burden really through the last few years of very much considering everything else. And we did have that a little bit to a degree with the North Node in Aries, but now that kind of burden of a responsibility is almost feeling like we do have to face those things now. But with Aries and Chiron, we have had it sitting in that position for a very long time. And it is going to start ingressing into a different sign soon. So we are in the last legs theoretically of this. Therefore, one would say we do have a bit of background experience here. So it's actually going to be our supporting force at this point in time, providing we acknowledge the areas we need to address and what the trigger points are, and how we can directly move into this cycle, tackling the challenge at hand without getting scared, penny little, running for the hill. So I think this is a good opportunity with that position to actually realize we have done work in this area. This is not a foreign frequency we currently are dealing with, a subject matter, a circumstance at hand. For the Sabian symbols that do link, and I have actually picked two based on the degree points of this lunation, which I do discuss in the article and I will discuss here. So some of the changes, for instance, were basically we're looking at ecosystems. So if we were directly to look at the conflict that we're seeing, the other circumstance is initially we can go into the analogy of why can't things go back to the way they were before. Yet when we do look at some of the things we already have changed and maybe were an inconvenience back in 2020, that they actually have become second nature for us. So the style in which we shop, the fact that we now are very much looking at where something has been made, what the price is, what the cost is going to be to actually ship it to you. And it's not that universe is saying to us, no. Universe is saying to us, have a look at a different way of doing this. Have a look outside the box, which A, can actually save you money. It could be faster delivery. And this is just one direct example. Now, why is it hard for Aries to feel alone at the top? Is because suddenly it is very much the energy of it's on you. And I had very much with the coaching of clients over the last few years said that there would be a turning point as we were moving towards this time, and it would feel as though suddenly the responsibility was on us. And in many shapes and forms, it can be that we are taking direct personal action inside of our lives and saying, okay, how can I become more independent? How can I become more sustainable? What responsibilities do I have? What are the limitations there that are blocking me from addressing particular areas in my life? Is it a relationship? Is it a career? Is it your location in the country you're living in? Whatever that subject matter is, this time can be heightened in emotions, but it's also a great opportunity to look back on an old circumstance with a ability to actually have a brand new chapter in that domain with more success. Now, it's not saying that we may not need to come back and tweak it a little bit, or that we could feel uneasy doing things in new ways, but it is saying that we're actually required to do that at this point in time. It's calling for us to do such. Okay, so within the Aries lunation, let's take a look. What we need to understand. Now, what lineup of planets do we have in the house of Aries during this time? We have the following. The Sun in Aries at 27 degrees. The Moon in Aries at 27 degrees. Mercury in Aries at 3 degrees. Mars in Aries at 5 degrees. Saturn in Aries at 7 degrees. Neptune in Aries at 2 degrees. Chiron in Aries at 26 degrees. And Vertex in Aries at 0 degrees. Now, the two areas I'm really focusing on at the minute, based on the degree point I'm going to reference, and that is the 27 degree point and the 0 degree point. Now, I have on my website shared some of the videos. You can dive deeper into it later once I open it, which will be after this video. And I do actually click in some videos that you can look to for a reference for the Sabian symbols and some of the reference points directly that I've made. So if that's of a resource to you, you can go through and you can sign up to the website. So the Sabian symbol, what is it? Where are we? I've got to make sure I'm getting the correct one. Okay, at the 0 degrees. And how can we look at vertex? Vertex is sort of like an energy where there can be an unexpected external circumstance. It's a fated event. It's something that can throw a spanner in the works. We will also look at the Sabian symbol related to this at 0 degrees. So when we look at 0 degrees, it's like the full carbon tarot. So you're like, oh crap, I've got to take a leap of faith. Here, be it due to external subjects playing out, it is the seed stage, the 0 degrees, almost like regardless of who you are, your mind, your lived experiences, hopes, aspirations, abilities, look not at 0 as nothing, but rather the seed. So it's like you're having to have the courage. Sometimes this can be a circumstance that plays out, a triggering catalyst moment. And how can that show up? For some of us, it could be that we're sitting there and we're grappling with having to make a decision, and we're like, I don't have enough information. I need to wait. Do I have the money? Do I have this? Do I have that? And so in the context of it, the 0 degree is just a starting point, but it could be an external circumstance that regardless of that fact, you're forced to actually make a decision. Now, it also does reference, based around this moon, that yes, there's going to be difficulties, there can be some challenges. This can be over the next 2 weeks into the next 6 months, although the most intense point is this week, okay? So we're eating hay for a bit. We're obviously having to have the passion of something, be it it's for fight and flight or it's directly for something that you're passionate about and you're trying to create. So with that in mind, the 0 degree, the full carbon tarot, putting your backpack, planting your seed, and understanding with the 0 degree point, there's infinite ways a circumstance can go. Okay, so you could go from rags to riches, riches to rags. You could go from feeling at your depth, but jumping in and just gradually working through those things. And, being okay with the fact that maybe it feels uncomfortable. You might not have a surety, but there's no assurity in the old as the old kind of bridge is burning down. Does that make sense? So it's like there's a choice here. There's a catalyst point that's actually pushing this circumstance. Now, where is it? Okay, so the Sabian symbol is a woman rises out of the water. A seal rises and embraces her. And it's from Scarred 7 Academy. So I have shared the video connecting to that. Now, the other, which is the 27 degree point between the sun and the moon, a lost opportunity is regained in the imagination. And I think what we need to understand here is, your intuition is going to be crucial right now. Your imagination also. And it was something I was talking to my husband about, more so in people's intuitions and how they directly use it. Sometimes we may respond when we're trying to actually interpret a situation or understand it, and we can be very quiet. That may be that your method of tuning into it and problem solving can be you're meditating, you're pondering over it. Others may actually get frustrated and exhibit frustration because they can't directly find a solution and express it. And I think in all contexts of this, it's very important to directly step back so you can directly get some perspective. So we tend to get the heightened frequency at lunations, be it it's full or new. This is new. Some of these things can start smoothing out within 2 weeks, but it is, don't just look at what's currently happening, but plan in the context of the bigger picture. At the 27 degree point, it is the critical degree point. So you may be able to achieve something. An opportunity may come towards you. A flash of idea could come where you can actually have a breakthrough for this, but you're going to have to trust the process and you're going to have to dive in the deep end. So sit with that. There is the difference between intuition, instinct, and a trigger. A trigger is going to be operating out of fear or control, which if we can acknowledge right now, there's many things we directly cannot control. There are many things we can, and it's how we respond. It's what we focus on. It's giving ourselves time to actually go through these waves of changes because we are really being impacted by these changes. I feel if you can do that, it's going to give you some grounding and context of how to actually tackle this circumstance. I keep going back to the wrong page. Okay. A lost opportunity is regained in the imagination at 27 degrees. With the energy of our sun and moon at this degree point, such is the essence of the emotion. I feel it is important to feel into this over the next few days. Be it a vision board, a bold decision, or a shift in your attitude will come up. And, some of these things that we're relating to, it could even be down to you want to look after your health, and what do? You just got to make a change. And with the transits linking to Taurus, there is a likelihood that if we get triggered, we may want to consume. We may go into hoarding tendencies. We could, emotional eat, emotional drink. And so we just need to be aware of this. Uranus is going to be moving into the house of Gemini, which is directly impacting a little bit of our nervous system, especially where we do look to the astrology, the economics of the astrology. We can find some of these things are going to smooth over shortly, but we are getting that momentum of Jupiter direct. So even particular precious metals can actually change in price. Some individuals have thrown out the bath with the baby water. It probably was better to look at the long-term energy, which is what I directly think. From an astrological point of view, it's actually guiding us to do is look at the bigger picture, not just instant gratification frequency, but something directly that is going to stabilize you. That's with the energy of both Saturn and Neptune at play here. And particular areas, yes, are going to have heightened growth, which we will go into at a later date. But as to your Venusian subjects, you can find that some of these things can start flowing. It is important, though, at this point in time, when we do look at a circumstance that's created a tower moment in our life, it's generally weeks after that you actually see a bit of the mess, okay? So we may be thinking we're seeing mess right now. It can come down the tunnel a little bit later. So plan for those factors. Don't rest on your laurels. Don't presume everything is hunky-dory. The other thing I would say is Saturn can relate to grains. Now, in the house of Aries, some of my predictions have reference to meat and maybe some issues with meat restrictions and meat limitations. We had that with Saturn in Pisces. We had subjects to do with lots of floods, and then we'd have the retrogrades. And that's where those floods were actually happening. And then the planet would move direct, and it was like the floodgates would close. Now, some of those subjects in the retrograde, we're not going to have a Mars retrograde yet, but we do need to keep an eye on it as we do have Saturn or Neptune retrograding. That's where I say we might see some of those subjects coming up. Now, what key areas also am I noticing at a very personal level? Now, one of the interesting topics was with the previous node I mentioned with We Didn't Start the Fire. As that transition between Pisces, the North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo shifted over to Aquarius and Leo, there were significant issues with grains, cereals, oils, fats, certain products. A lot of countries were actually shifting around the subjects that they directly were importing, exporting, and some of the expertise also was evolving, and that was down to coffee, sugar, cocoa. One thing I am noticing is I think it's something we've actually overlooked, and you might want to pop into your garden, take a look at the health of your trees, is that there are certain subtropic trees and certain trees that were more zoned for hotter environments, that because we did have huge downpours, especially here in Australia, I'm actually noticing some of the trees looking sick. So it was historically referenced that when we did have that kind of transition of the nodes, which is something that we're moving into very soon, and we're trying to prepare these foundations with Saturn for the long term, So being aware that certain producers can directly be impacted regardless, and that could be to do with fungus or insects or weather events. So really check the health of your trees right now to get on top of it, especially as the temperatures are changing, with the health of your fruit trees, your olive trees and things to that degree, because I am noticing some sicknesses coming through with them. Are there any questions before I continue? Now, what events could come up? Yes, we can have some intensity relating to some of the conflict in the Middle East. Although, if this does settle down, I do see some of these things coming back later in the year. Now, it's not that I'm wishing for those things. It is very much based on some of the subject matters that we can see astrologically. Could they tie up sooner? We're still watching for some of the things, but we're going in a month by month at this point, and I do believe by next month it is going to be a totally different frequency, and definitely some of your plans can start moving forward, but you really need to check all your fine print, double check what you're signing up for, in a sense, or moving in towards, because it is going to be slow and steady wins the race. Now, for some of you, these brand new chapters are going to be to do with independence, how you can, do something that you're really passionate about, how you can create, more resilience at an economic level, how you can look after your wellness. Gyms will do extremely well. It was funny, my partner actually referenced the fact that this person was actually putting up for auction some of their toys, and that does relate to the South Node that's coming in the House of Leo. And I did predict that a lot of antique toys and could actually fetch quite a pretty penny. So if you do have some antiques about, wait, because with Jupiter ingressing into Leo, I do predict that some of those things can actually increase. We will see changes also with gold. So what do we need to be careful of? Take a look at your resources, look at your emotions, and be careful of how you communicate. Be aware of where it hits your chart and what those subjects are. Could there be some external circumstances that play out quite suddenly and require a sudden response? Yes, there could be. Some of these things already have been playing out, and I do believe some of these things already, it was something that maybe we had put on the back burner, but now it's coming up to the table to directly, take a look at and address. Sort of like drawing a line in the sand and having directly to address it head on. Now, this is a great time for a vision board. This is a great time to actually make some statements about what you're wanting to create and bring into your world. I can't say avoid the negativity, because it's going to be hard not to, but I would say don't allow that to define what you are doing moving forward. Because if you are getting super triggered, it's probably best to actually detach for a little bit. You could use some Earth Hurts meditation. Try and avoid overstimulation, especially through maybe drinking coffee. I'm drinking a herbal drink, because that's actually going to aid you to get anchored in. I would also say, if you can, do a list of what you're wanting to achieve, write it down so that you can do your key point areas of what you want to get done. The hardest, maybe do first things so you can actually cut to the chase with it. Great time to actually clear your home. And I would definitely be very cautious around sharp objects, fires, or dangerous activities. You will find a lot more accidents on the road. And as we have seen on social media and the news, we have seen a lot of fires in buildings. Now, this could have been warehouses and factories. Yes, the most unnatural places that they could occur as well. And so it has been quite extreme with both those planets really being in the House of Aries. And so we can really find it, the sun, this could be at social locations. It could be action parks and fun parks. Concentration is going to be incredibly important, especially if you're daydreaming off into oblivion. You are going to make very rash decisions, especially on the road. With Mercury, really paying attention to what you're eating, checking inside your food for sharp objects, and that's more from a astrological point of view. You know, being careful with your knife and fork, being careful what is physically inside your food, checking the temperature before you're eating it, because it is Mother Nature, choking hazards and things to that degree. Overspending. Overspending, or definitely I would say checking your security and your passwords for your logins, because Mercury is involved here. Now, on the up and up, this is positive. This is a positive time for you to have another opportunity to actually look at an old dream, look at an old circumstance, look to the area of Aries where it is in your chart, and understand where some of these things are playing out. Yes, we could have earthquakes, volcanic activity. We can have discoveries around the Aries-based subjects. I still see a lot of cold cases being cracked. I have given a whole myriad of lists of things that are set to happen, what the tips are for you. So again, I'll leave it at that. I'll answer a few questions and then I will be off. I just did not want to leave you guys without the understanding and the context of it. A great time to really draw a line in that sand and to make those decisions. And I think when you do look at Saturn, these are, especially with the 0 degree point and where the degree point was for it, you know, for the 27 old, the 0 new, it's like, this is not an area we're ill experienced with. It's not. What we are intentionally desiring, and I think we could be more patient if we understood how this was playing out, is that we all collectively are desiring to have a more stable footing. So if we're going to sacrifice for something, it's to co-create that in our life. So whatever we're moving towards is to create that polarity. When it comes to connections, you're going to desire that. And you would rather take things slow to make sure that everything is in its place where it needs to be. So taking your time with it, not putting the pressure on, and getting that, yes, you can actually have that. You can create that stable structure for connections to actually move forward. Some of us through that Pisces kind of actually moving into the Aquarius frequency, we're going to be grappling with new subjects. We still simultaneously, until mid-year, are very much ending old things. It's wrapping it up. It's fine-tuning them. It's quality assurance. It's crossing the T's and dotting the I's. Simultaneously, the hard yards of moving through a matrix and having new beginnings and actually building structures that are going to last. I wouldn't be surprised if you've been moving about town and you've actually been seeing buildings or buildings really being demolished because we're taking down the old and we're ready to start erecting the new and building it. And it can take a little bit of time, but if it's done correctly, it can be something that can actually stand there for a long time. So have faith in yourself. Another thing is online, we actually have changed the pricing temporarily for any of your bookings. Now, I have changed the telephone for, what was it, for Saturday and Sunday, I believe. And I've also changed the price for, so it's Teams and telephone bookings. There's a price change. It is temporary. Once the actual website membership site is open to the public that you can actually join, those prices will increase because a lot of the attention will actually be moving over to coaching sessions and things like that inside of the actual membership. But at the moment, it has been reduced. There are limited days, but nevertheless, it has been reduced in price. So if that is something that you need and you want some support during that time, jump on and grab it. It will not be at that price forever. Take care, and I will see you all soon.